I want to talk a bit about adjusting to new realities. We've all had to adjust to the new reality of this lockdown, but there's a new reality which we'll have to adjust to down the line, which won't just be going back to the way things were. I don't know if you've seen the film Shawshank Redemption, but there's a scene in that where one of the characters called Brooks leaves prison for the first time, and he's elderly and he's been in the prison for many years, and he just doesn't know how to adjust to his new life. He doesn't understand how the modern world works. He doesn't have the necessary skills. And spoiler alert, he goes on to take his own life. In the Bible, there's a period where the Israelites are in captivity in Babylon for 70 years. And this was a really tough time for them, being apart from Jerusalem, where they needed to be. And yet, returning from this captivity wasn't easy. There were economic difficulties and there were disputes over governance. And I think what these two stories show is that release from restriction is sometimes as disorientating as the restriction itself. I wouldn't want to draw too strong parallels with what we're going through at the moment. Our actions are being restricted for our own health, not because we've done something wrong or because of an oppressive regime. We've also all been affected differently by the virus. If you're living alone in a small flat and have underlying health conditions, you'll have experienced these restrictions very differently than someone surrounded by the family in a house with a garden. But although we've all been affected differently, there's an element of collective trauma, that we've all been through something. Nobody's been completely unaffected. And yet I don't think we'll come out of this crisis jubilant or celebratory, but with a heavy burden of grief. Perhaps grief for loved ones that we've lost, but also grief for time spent with friends, for events we're going to go to, holidays which we'll look forward to. And it will take us some time to adjust, both on a political and public health level, but also in our personal relationships. The first hugs that we share with each other may well be tentative ones. When we've been conditioned to socially distance, people coming within 2 meters of you might well be anxiety-inducing to begin with. In the Shawshank Redemption, when another of the main characters, Red, came out of prison for the first time, he also struggled to adjust to his new reality. And we see many scenes which parallel those of earlier on with Brooks, where he's struggling. But Red manages to hold on to hope, and he pursues a life better than the one before he went into prison. After the Babylonian captivity, the Israelites set about rebuilding the temple which was destroyed 70 years earlier. I imagine that was an incredibly daunting process, returning from a time of restriction, knowing that there was much in need of restoration. And the Israelites messed up, as they always did, but there was still a constant stream of prophets demanding that God's justice and righteousness was embedded in the new society which they were seeking to rebuild, demanding that they could do better than what they had done in the past. As we emerge from this crisis, as we ourselves rebuild, I hope that we give ourselves permission to be as disorientated by the recovery as we were by the event itself, but that in our relationships with each other and in the way we move forward as a country, that we can be prophets, bringing to bear a world that is better than how it was before.